You know, people always ask me if I'm scared of the dead. I tell them no. The dead are quiet. They don't have agendas. They don't lie. It's the silence that gets to you, though. That heavy, thick silence in the back of the van that feels like it's pressing against your eardrums. I've been a body transporter for 6 years now. My job is simple. Pick up the deceased from hospitals, nursing homes, or sometimes, sadly, crime scenes, and take them to the funeral home or the morgue. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, and honestly, I like the solitude. Or at least I used to. This happened about 3 months ago. I was working the graveyard shift. Ironic, I know, in Seattle. It was raining, that kind of misty, freezing rain that makes the streetlights look like they're bleeding onto the pavement. I got a call around 2 a.m. for a pickup at a small, private hospice center on the edge of the city. Routine stuff. An elderly John Doe, no family, passed away in his sleep. I pulled up to the loading dock, and the nurse who met me looked rattled. Not sad, rattled. She was young, maybe 22, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. She just handed me the paperwork and said, "He's ready. Just take him quickly, please." I didn't think much of it. Hospice workers see a lot. Maybe this one just hit close to home. I loaded the gurney into the back of my van, strapped it down, and started the drive to the county morgue. It's about a 40-minute drive, mostly highway. About 10 minutes in, I hit a patch of construction, so the road was bumpy. I heard the gurney rattle behind me. That's normal. But then I heard a thud, like a heavy arm hitting the metal floor. I frowned, checking the rearview mirror. It was pitch black back there, just the faint outline of the body bag. "Easy back there," I muttered to myself. I turned up the radio to drown out the noise. Then came the sound. Zzz. It was the unmistakable sound of a zipper sliding down. My stomach dropped. I slammed on the brakes, pulling onto the shoulder. I sat there for a second, gripping the steering wheel, my heart hammering against my ribs. I told myself it was the vibration from the road. Zippers don't just open themselves. I grabbed my flashlight and got out. The rain was coming down harder now. I opened the back doors and the beam of my light cut through the dark. The bag was open, not all the way, just down to the chest. I froze. The man inside was old, pale, his skin like crumpled paper, but that wasn't what stopped my breath. It was his chest. Right over the sternum, there was a tattoo. It looked fresh, the ink vivid and dark against his grey skin. It was a strange symbol, an anchor, but upside down with a single, weeping eye in the center of the shank. I stared at it. Who gives a dying man a fresh tattoo? And then I saw the chest rise. It was shallow, a tiny hitch of breath. I stumbled back, nearly slipping on the wet pavement. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Sir?" Nothing, no movement. I crept closer, shining the light on his face. His eyes were closed. I reached out, my hand shaking, to check for a pulse on his neck. His skin was ice cold. Not cool, ice cold. The temperature of a slab. There was no pulse. I waited 10 seconds. 20. Nothing. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, you're just seeing things." Lack of sleep. I reached for the zipper to pull it back up. As my fingers touched the cold plastic tab, the body's hand shot up and grabbed my wrist. His grip was like iron. It burned. It was so cold. My flashlight fell, rolling across the floor of the van. In the strobe light spinning of the beam, I saw his eyes open. They were milky white, cataracts, blind, but he was looking right at me. He didn't speak with his mouth. His lips never moved. But I heard a voice, clear as day, right inside my ear, like he was standing behind me. "The cargo is marked. The flight leaves from Chicago." I screamed, yanking my arm back with everything I had. His hand went limp instantly, falling back onto the metal floor with a dead thud. I scrambled out of the van, hyperventilating. I stood in the rain for 5 minutes, just staring at the open doors. I eventually built up the courage to go back in, zip the bag, using a towel so I didn't have to touch him. and drove the rest of the way to the morgue doing 80 miles an hour. When I dropped him off, I asked the coroner if he noticed anything weird about the body, specifically the tattoo. He looked at me over his glasses. "What tattoo?" he asked. He unzipped the bag right there. The chest was bare, just pale old skin. No anchor, no eye. I quit that job a week later. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought it was just a hallucination brought on by stress. But I can still feel the cold burn of his fingers on my wrist. And I can't forget what he said. "The flight leaves from Chicago." I didn't know what it meant. Not until I heard about the crash a month later. Story number 2. That story about the driver. It gave me chills because I was in Chicago that night. I'm a cargo pilot. I fly the red-eye routes. Usually it's Amazon packages, car parts, mail, boring stuff. But sometimes we fly human remains. It's called HR cargo. It's strictly regulated. They come in sealed containers, usually caskets inside air tray shipping boxes. You treat them with respect, you strap them down, and you don't ask questions. I was flying a converted 747 out of O'Hare, heading to New Orleans. It was a miserable night. Thunderstorms were rolling across the Midwest, and ATC had us delayed on the tarmac for an hour. I was doing my pre-flight walk-around inside the main deck. It was just me and my co-pilot, Dave, up in the cockpit. The hold was dimly lit, just rows of netted pallets. Way in the back, near the tail, we had 3 HR containers. I was checking the straps on the last one when I noticed something odd. The air tray box, the cardboard cover that goes over the casket, was torn. Just a small rip in the corner. Now, protocol says I have to report that. If the container is compromised, we can't fly it. I shone my flashlight into the tier to see if the casket inside was damaged. There wasn't a casket. It was just a body wrapped in heavy, clear plastic sheeting lying directly on the wooden pallet base. That is strictly illegal. You never ship a body like that. I keyed my radio. "Dave, come back here. We got a problem." I leaned in closer. The plastic was tight against the skin. It was a man, middle-aged, stocky build. And right there, on his chest, pressed against the plastic, was a tattoo. An upside-down anchor, with a weeping eye in the center. I felt a weird sense of déjà vu, though I had never seen that symbol before. It just felt wrong, evil. Dave walked up behind me. "What's the issue?" "Look at this," I pointed. "No casket, just plastic. And look at that ink." Dave squinted. "Weird, is that bleeding?" I looked closer. The eye in the tattoo, it wasn't just ink. A single drop of real red blood was beading up on the skin, underneath the plastic. "We need to offload this," I said. "I'm not signing for this." Suddenly the plane lurched. We weren't moving. The engines were off, but the whole airframe shuddered like we hit severe turbulence. The lights in the cargo hold flickered and died, plunging us into total darkness. "Dave," I called out. "I'm here." His voice was tight. "Just the APU acting up. I'll go check the breaker." "Wait," I said. In the silence of the dark hold, I heard a sound coming from the pallet. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It sounded like fingernails on plastic. I fumbled for my flashlight, my hands sweating. I clicked it on and aimed it at the body. The man's eyes were open, and he was smiling. A wide, impossible grin that stretched too far across his face. The scratching wasn't him trying to get out. He was scratching a rhythm on the pallet floor. Tap, tap, scratch. Tap, tap, scratch. Then, the radio on my shoulder, the one connected to the cockpit comms, crackled to life. But it wasn't ATC. It was a voice that sounded like wet gravel. "The fire waits in the south. Bring us to the fire." I dropped the radio. "Dave, did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Dave asked from the darkness. He sounded far away. I didn't hear anything. I looked back at the body. The eyes were closed again. The smile was gone. The blood from the tattoo had smeared against the plastic, forming a word. Burn. I wanted to run. I wanted to get off that plane. But then the lights flickered back on. The ground crew came on board to check the load. I told them about the body. I made them open the box. When they lifted the cardboard, it was a standard casket, sealed, proper paperwork. They looked at me like I was drunk. "Captain, it's sealed tight." "What are you talking about?" I insisted they open the casket. They refused. "Federal law," they said. We flew that flight. I have never been so terrified in my life. Every bump of turbulence I thought he was breaking out. I thought he was coming for the cockpit. We landed in New Orleans at 4 a.m. as they were unloading the HR crates. I watched from the cockpit window. I saw the ramp agent handling that specific crate stop. He looked at his hand, then wiped it on his pants, looking confused, like he had touched something cold or wet. I never flew another night cargo run. I transferred to days, but I checked the manifest for that crate. It was headed to a crematorium in the French Quarter, a 24-hour place. And that's where the third part of this nightmare happened. Story number 3. I didn't know the pilot. I didn't know the driver in Seattle, but I know what I saw in my oven. I operate the retort, that's the furnace, at a crematorium in New Orleans. We run 24 hours a day because, well, people die 24 hours a day. The night shift is usually peaceful, just the hum of the ventilation and the roar of the burners. It was near the end of my shift, maybe 5 p.m. We had a transport come in from the airport. Urgent cremation request. No service, no family viewing. Just burn and return the ashes. The paperwork was weird, no name. Just a case number and a location of origin, Chicago. I moved the casket, a simple cardboard shipping container, onto the loader. My job is to verify that there's nothing in the box that will explode, like a pacemaker. So I had to open it. I cut the seal and lifted the lid. Inside was a man. He looked like he'd been dead for a while, but preserved perfectly. And on his chest, God, I still see it when I blink, an upside-down anchor with a bleeding eye. But it wasn't just a tattoo anymore. The skin around it was pulsating, like the ink was alive, rooting into his chest cavity. I've seen a lot of dead bodies. They don't scare me, but this felt dangerous. The air in the room instantly dropped 20 degrees. My breath started fogging up in front of my face. I just wanted to get it over with. I checked for a pacemaker, didn't. Find one, and quickly pushed the container into the retort. I hit the button to close the heavy steel door. I set the timer and ignited the burners. Usually it takes about 2 to 3 hours. 20 minutes in, the alarm went off. Temperature critical. I ran to the control panel. The internal temp was spiking way past 1800 degrees. That shouldn't happen. I looked through the spy hole, the little glass window we used to check on the burn. The fire wasn't orange. It was black. I swear to you, the flames were pitch black, licking around the body. And the body, it wasn't burning. The cardboard box was gone, turned to ash instantly. But the man was hovering. He was levitating just inches above the hearth floor. The black fire was swirling into that tattoo on his chest, like the eye was sucking the flames inside him. I heard a banging on the metal door. Boom, boom, boom. It was coming from inside the furnace. I backed away, grabbing a fire extinguisher. Not that it would do any good. "What the hell are you?" I screamed. The banging stopped. A voice came through the thick steel walls. It was muffled, but loud. It vibrated the fillings in my teeth. Seattle found me. Chicago flew me. New Orleans feeds me. The temperature gauge shattered. Glass flew across the room. The heavy steel door of the retort began to glow cherry red. Not from the heat of the gas, but from something pushing against it. I saw the imprint of a hand pressing into the steel from the inside, melting the metal like it was wax. I ran. I didn't lock up. I didn't turn off the gas. I ran out the back door and sprinted until my lungs burned. I called the fire department from a gas station 3 blocks away. When the fire trucks got there, the crematorium was gone. It hadn't burned down. It had imploded. The walls had collapsed inward. The fire marshal said it was a gas leak, a catastrophic failure. But I asked him about the body in retort 3. He looked at me strange. "Son," he said. There were no bodies found in the rubble. No bone fragments, nothing, just a lot of ash. I moved back to Texas after that. I work in a grocery store now. I stock shelves during the day. I don't do nights. But yesterday, I was stocking the magazine rack. I saw a customer, a guy in a tank top. He was reaching for a newspaper. On his forearm, fresh and healing, was a tattoo, an upside-down anchor with an eye. I froze. He looked at me and he winked. I think they're waking up all over the country, and I think we helped them get here.